Hi guys, I'm back for one more episode of Fiber Friday, in case you forgot about it. And today we're talking about something you probably didn't expect me to be talking about, but this is how I roll. And today I'm talking about clothes and shoes by proxy. Why am I talking about clothes? What do clothes have anything to do with fibromyalgia? You'll probably be wondering all of these things. Well, loads of things have to do with clothes, fibromyalgia, and shoes. I will start with the clothes first, and then we will move on to the shoes. Depending on how much time I have, I might have two videos or one, we shall see. What is the issue with clothes and fibromyalgia? Right. If you've been watching this for a while, and if not, I'll repeat it to you very briefly. As you know, most people with fibromyalgia have sensitivities to certain things, whether it's smells or sounds. It can also be touch. And of course, our skin can be very delicate. I literally don't know a single person that has fibromyalgia that doesn't have either associated contact dermatitis, allergies, just eczema, all sorts of things, actual dermatitis, not just contact dermatitis, whatever it may be. Our skin is very sensitive. Even if you don't have any of these conditions, your skin will normally still be on the category of sensitive skin. As a result, a lot of clothes can be very uncomfortable. And it's not just because your skin is sensitive, but also because, as you probably gather, if you're in pain, you don't want things that are tight in the wrong places or that are scratching you or all sorts of things. It happens all the time. And it can be really frustrating going food shopping, clothes shopping, food shopping as well. But clothes shopping when you have fibromyalgia, because you only have a limited amount of time to try things on, and you may be perfectly fine, but then you flare up one day and that thing just doesn't agree with you. So here are some general things that I have found out about clothes, fibromyalgia, and shoes and whatnot, and general tips for people who may be really struggling to sort of know what to be in the lookout for and maybe what to avoid. Right. Well, from a personal experience, I've always had problems with clothes because I'm tiny. So added the problem of fibromyalgia, great thing. But also I have eczema. My eczema mostly affects my hands and my feet. The hands are not so much of a problem, but the feet can be really bad because they appear right on the knuckles of particularly of the big toes. And if things like the seams of socks catch you in the wrong place and you have to be walking on that, wearing that the whole day, it's awful. I've had some sporadic rashes of eczema elsewhere in my body, but they were probably just allergic reactions rather than my actual eczema. But eczema can sometimes travel and it starts moving around. But in general, my skin has been awful for as long as I remember. Even as a child, my mom used to say that my skin was just like paper or sandpaper or anything like that because it generally damaged so easily. It took a long time for it to heal and things like that. So obviously, I've always been very conscious of things that make my skin not feel comfortable, and clothes are a real big issue. One of the things that I found that is a completely no-go for me is traditional wire bras. I know, you probably wouldn't be, you probably aren't even aware if you're a man or if you don't wear bras of the pain that a bra can really cause to someone in general, like to any woman. A lot of bras are not fitted properly, they're really uncomfortable to wear, the straps, the wires, all of this stuff. Hideous. But for someone with fibromyalgia, they are particularly bad, especially if you suffer from really bad menstrual cramps and things like that, or just other menstrual symptoms, because right underneath our breasts, we have on each side two glands, which are one of the points that flare up and that you can see as inflammation nodes that happen during a flare up in fibromyalgia. We have points, all of our body has points that when we have fibromyalgia are considered tender points. And when you have a flare, these points are more sensitive. And underneath the breast happens to be some of these points. So imagine how uncomfortable it is already to wear a bra and then have wire digging at you right there the whole day. No, thank you. So yeah, bras are bye-bye for me. The ones that I have are ones that don't have wire whatsoever. Something similar to like sport bras or bralettes, things like that, and they're always made of cotton. No frilly stuff, no random stuff like that. That's just bad. And that area as well, the chest and just the neck, are so sensitive skin anyway, just even on a normal person without fibromyalgia, that you don't want to be exposing it to scratchy material that sometimes that type of frilly lace stuff is done with. So that's definitely a no-go. And frilly lace harsh material in general. You can tell the good one from the harsh one because the good one obviously feels softer. But in general, when I buy clothes, the first thing I do is touch them, touch them, touch them, touch them. And I know they sound crazy, but obviously not these days because COVID. But if I can, particularly when I get home, I try and touch them with something really sensitive, like my lips or the tip of my nose, because that's already sensitive areas of your body anyway. So if that doesn't feel right here, that's a good indicator that when you put that on sensitive spots all over your body, that item of clothing is not going to agree with you. It's the same for underwear of all types. Consider that all underwear is around some of the most delicate parts of our bodies anyway. So all of the underwear I use is mostly cotton, and most of the clothes I use in general are cotton. And I'll explain why. A lot of synthetic fabrics are quite coarse. A lot of them are made with plastic, and plastic tends to degenerate over time and cause just general wear and tear marks on your clothing. But those wear and tears often end up with the fabric being snap. The textile snaps, and when it snaps, it can scratch your skin very easily. It also means that because it's a harsher material, it's gonna be scratching or making your skin a lot more sensitive. There are some that are okay, some that aren't. I would sincerely recommend that you start reading all of the labels of the things that you have at home, just as a good starting point, and see, like, I don't know, this shirt, it feels very comfortable on me, all of that. Okay, check the materials. What is it made of? Because that will give you a good indicator of what works for you. Another thing is looking at seams, like where seams end up, because seams always have, double stitching sometimes, and they end up in some awkward places. I had to get these ones worn over time because they fell right on my collarbone, and I used to get really bad scratches all over my neck. That's the same reason why I cut all of the labels on clothing, because again, that's usually made out of plastic. It's gonna cause a rash. You don't want that, particularly on trousers. Again, that coccyx area or around their hips, very delicate. A very, very important place to make sure that there is no extra pressure and no extra scratching sensation, because our spine is going right there. The junction to which the spine goes into the hips is one of the most sensitive areas in our body, in our lumbars, and it's where a bunch of nerves actually end up coming together. So, of course, if something isn't agreeing with you there, the message of pain and discomfort that the brain is going to fire is going to be a lot more noticeable down there, because it's going to be a lot more receptive. So just be mindful of those things. Check the seams, check where the buttons fall. These poppers are great because they usually, although they are metallic, and if you are sensitive to that type of touch, it can be a bit, irritating. But if you don't have a problem with poppers, and sometimes plastic poppers as well, they tend to be flat, so they don't scratch you around and things like that. That's one of the reasons why I love poppers, and because poppers are great in general. And another advantage that poppers have for people with fibromyalgia, instead of buttons, is that it just pops. You just tear and it opens. So if you are unable to use your hands properly, or you're really struggling, or someone else needs to help you get dressed or undressed, it can make life a lot easier, because you don't need to be fiddling around with the button. You just apply a little bit of pressure and it's done. And actually, replacing buttons in shirts that you may already own for poppers is really easily and often very cheap. And if you cannot do it yourself, you can take it to a local seamstress and they will not charge you an awful lot. You could make a sincerely big difference to your clothing in that sense. So there you go. It's not just the actual fabrics or where the seams are, but things like that, like, the way we get dressed. It's so important. It can be such a hassle. Like, I love turtlenecks, but again, depending on the fabric, turtlenecks around here can leave a lot of scratch marks. All of my turtlenecks are so soft. Like when you get a new t-shirt and it's almost like a peach skin, right? And there is a lot of trousers and things like that that have that sort of texture that is just very soft. That's really good for the fibromyalgia. It can give you a sense of comfort, and it's also a way of ensuring that you're not going to have that sort of sensory dislike or discomfort. But On top of that, turtlenecks can be a bit bad for fibromyalgia if they're particularly tight around this area. The jawline is very sensitive as well for people with fibromyalgia, particularly if you have TMJ, which is temporary mandibular joint disorder. Now that is something that happens here, where your ears connect with your jaw. And if you click your jaw, there, yeah, if any of you have that and you don't know why you have it and you have fibromyalgia, a ridiculous amount of people with fibromyalgia have TMJ. It will be often diagnosed by your dentist, not by your doctor. But it also means that because that area is quite sensitive, it essentially means that the cartilage there is not sitting properly, and that's why your jaw moves and why you crack. But it also means that we have a lot of pressure in this area, and this area moves here very easily. So turtlenecks, if they add too much pressure, can actually flare a lot of pain around here. And like I told you on my episode about bathrooms, pain in the neck and in particularly the jaw area because of teeth and the proximity to the brain can be really bad for people with fibromyalgia. So if you have issues with that, just cut out turtlenecks from your wardrobe. As much as I love them, I have a few and I know they work because you can stretch them and you can pull them through your head and it doesn't matter, and they're so soft. But that's another bad thing for people with fibromyalgia. If you're in a flare, if you're feeling uncomfortable, if you can't get undressed, a turtleneck is going to get stuck in your face. And it's not going to be pleasant and it's going to make you feel anxious. So just consider things like that when you are looking at your clothes. A lot of the t-shirts that I have, particularly for the winter, just because I get really cold, have quite a sort of wide neck, just so I know I can pull them into layers easily. Same with jumpers. All of my jumpers are wide turtlenecks, so then they just go over my head with no problem, or they have buttons or zips, things like that, because again, it's a practicality issue. And you need to consider this. If I could live in my pajamas the whole day, I will. And I do. But eventually you need to go to the outside world and you need to bring these things into consideration. And I've always been an advocate for be comfortable rather than fancy. I don't care. Legit, if you don't have any other option of just going outside in your pajamas, then screw the world. They don't need to know that you're in your pajamas. And if they know, well, too bad for them. I didn't see a booklet that said I cannot go outside in my pajamas. They're clothes. I'm not naked. So whatever. But, just practical considerations like that can be really, really important in our lives. And often we just take them for granted because they're clothes, so we don't care about this. It's the same for trousers. Like, I know fashion makes things really difficult sometimes, but sometimes really tight jeans or really tight clothes can make fibromyalgia, pain in the legs, really uncomfortable, particularly when you have sore knees and you have extra pressure there. That's exactly what I feel them normally. It's not so much in the hip, but in the knees, because obviously it just tends to accumulate around the cartilage, and the jeans can cause a lot of pressure there. So again, it's a matter of finding maybe stretchy fabrics that are not so rigid, or things that are just not so tight, to ensure that you're doing well. And for me particularly, it's also the ankles. My ankles are very sensitive. I hate any type of trousers, and this happens particularly with active gear like running stuff and whatnot, and pajamas, when instead of just being like a legging, it's fitting and it's tight, but it then sort of cut at the ankle, and that's fine. A lot of trousers for the last few years, they've been sort of like baggy, and then they get to the ankle and they sort of have this scruffy type material that just sort of tightens things up really strongly around the ankle, and I find them really uncomfortable. Again, that type of material is really difficult to get off your feet when you're having a bad day. So just consider these things, for goodness sake. It will make, seriously, your life so much easier once you actually start thinking about that. And I know it's a headache and you probably don't want to, but it will sincerely help. Shoes, I mean, excellent. Everyone's like talking about shoes, right? Well, maybe you don't, but I love shoes. I used to work in a specialized shoe shop, which some of you in the UK may know. It's called Hotter Shoes. And there's lots of brands like this that specialize on comfort, things like that. And they're usually seen as sort of old lady-ish look, like what your grandma may buy, because their bunions in the feet are quite hard and things like that. Well, let me tell you something. I found out so much stuff about foot care that I've been able to apply to my fibromyalgia since I worked there, which is, surreal. A lot of these specialist shoe shops, fine, they may not be as fancy looking or as cheap as the ones in New Look or whatever you do your shopping like Primark, but consider that if you have fibromyalgia, I mean, any person in general spends a lot of time either sitting if they're in office or walking, getting to places. Your feet need to take you to places. You need your feet to be in good health, because if you lose mobility on your feet, if your feet start to not be able to bear your weight, or it's uncomfortable, or your shoes do damage to your feet, you will go down. So a normal, healthy person should take care of their feet no matter what, and should wear the right foot care for them. Someone with fibromyalgia should think about this not just once, twice, but 3 times, and I'll explain you why. If you're a person with fibromyalgia and you don't have mobility problems, in the sense of you don't require something like a wheelchair or something like that to get about, you're likely to obviously have to be mindful of when you walk, how you walk, and for how long. One of the things that we need to be very careful of when we have fibromyalgia is impact absorption on our feet, because, well, our joints suffer. Everyone's joints suffer, but our joints are a bit more susceptible to this pain because our brain going, oh my god, this thing is hurting us. So if you have the wrong footwear, the absorption damage will accelerate things. This is the reason why it happens as well with people with arthritis and things like that. Your joints are fragile. All of our joints are fragile, and we need to take better care of them. A lot of specialized shoe shops, and not just the things that you can buy off the rack in your ordinary clothes shop, have soles, insoles, and just the general design of the shoe that will help make that absorption less harsh on your joints, which means you will be able to feel refreshed whilst you're walking and walk for longer, which will be overall good for your health, without feeling like you're in pain and you're gonna have to pack up and go home. It's very important, so important. I cannot emphasize this enough. They will provide you the right support as well on your shoes. Like, how many times do we wear things that we think are pretty but are actually doing our feet so many wrongs that we cannot undo? If you have the right support on your ankle, on your Achilles, and around your arch, whether you're flat-footed or more pronounced, the arch is a very important place as well for people with fibromyalgia, because similarly to here and the jaw, there's lots of tiny little nerve endings and things like that happening all along our bony parts of the feet. There's gonna be pain reception there, and also your arch is there to help you walk. That's the reason why people that end up flat-footed need a special insoles and things like that, so that the pain doesn't happen, so they can walk better. So you need to have that support there, and you need to make sure that happens. I don't care how you do it. I don't care if it's with shoelaces, with Velcro, with whatever. I don't care. Food technology has improved a lot over time, and you can wear whatever shoes you want without looking, I don't know, old-fashioned or whatever. But just make sure that you have the right support on your feet to avoid further damage and to make your walking experience more comfortable. Because, like I said, it's very hard for us to go out there and enjoy the world walking on our 2 little legs around with our fatigue. But obviously, our fatigue can increase if our feet don't feel like they can go forward. And you will be discouraged to go outside, and going outside is good for your mental health. So those two things go linked together. So all of the shoes that I have, and this may sound really posh, but the vast majority of the shoes that I have are from a well-known brand. And it's not because I'm brand obsessed. I'm the least brand obsessed person in the world. I don't care. But it's because they are brands that I know will make a good shoe that will last me a very long time and that will fit my needs. The vast majority of them are shoes that I can take the insole out, which tends to be the first thing that gets worn off in a shoe. So then I can just replace it without having to buy a whole new pair of shoes. Or if I need extra support, extra padding, you need to wear orthopedics, which a lot of people with fibromyalgia do, anything like that, you can just put them in and fit your own way of walking. It's very important, and I would really recommend you to consider some options like that. It happens a lot, whether it's trainers, more and more trainers do that these days, because again, athletes and people that do exercise need this type of support. So don't you think it's, something weird or outlandish? It's good for your feet, and it's something that you need to take very good care of. So just consider things like that. And again, when it comes to feet and shoes, just consider what the fastening is like, to see if you can actually do them up on your own or not, and how much trouble they may give you if you start being in pain, too tired, or unable to do it yourself. See what the shape of the shoe is and how it fits with your own feet. because if you use the wrong shape for your feet and your shoes sort of end up causing problems, you're gonna have problems such as rubbing, which is obviously gonna end up causing damage. You're gonna have problems such as cutting, particularly if the shoe material starts breaking. Like with clothes, it will start tearing into your feet. Some materials are more prominent to doing this than others. Again, just check what your shoes are made of. The vast majority of my shoes are made of leather or something similar. Why? Because most leather, although it can be hard, it gives very quickly, it becomes very comfortable, and it's good at keeping your feet temperature steady. Very important for people with fibromyalgia. Why? Because we lose most heat through our head, our hands, and our feet. And having a material that sort of resists this to a certain degree means that we are less likely to suffer from, sudden shock of temperatures, particularly in the winter. Having the right type of insulation in your shoes in the winter is crucial. Don't just wear fluffy socks. Wear them, they're great. But, thermal socks, thermal clothing of any type for people with fibromyalgia, absolutely golden. And the fabric tends to be really soft, which is good. Thermal socks to go with shoes that have good insulation, necessary. And again, look at where the seams are in the shoes. Sometimes they may be rubbing on the edge of your toes. Again, so many nerve endings there. We just tend to not notice, but there are so many nerve endings there. It's particularly difficult with summer shoes, sandals, and things like that because you have so many strips going around. It's so easy that one of them, stitching usually, will give and it will start rubbing onto you. So just take your time when choosing shoes for your wardrobe and when you go out so that they are suited for the right activity. Because this is the thing, we also tend to do things like, how many people go to the to nature just wearing I don't know, their Sunday best or something like that? Not the greatest idea. So just consider things like that. When you start making these changes, you will feel more comfortable, and comfort is so dear to us. Don't put it off. I appreciate all of these things I'm suggesting may be expensive or more pricey than just going to Primark and spending a $5 on a t-shirt, a pair of trousers, and some socks. I get it. We don't always have the money. I get it. But you don't need 3,000 shoes, 3,000 jeans, 3,000 t-shirts. Think about it long term. If these clothes are gonna last you longer, because if they tend to be better made, and therefore if you feel comfortable as well, you will take better care of them, also very important, and they will last longer. You will be better off pocket-wise, because things that are cheaply made tend to disintegrate, and if you need to go to the shop a year later and replace it, it wasn't really worth the while. You're spending the same amount of money just in a shorter period of time, which actually is generating you more stress, because you need to be paying attention to this. Take time, do some research, check, like I said, the things that you already own, and seriously and thoroughly analyze them. Are they actually good for you? Do they make you feel comfortable? If you depend on a carer or someone like them, ask them. Are they good for them to help you be comfortable? Is this thing easy to take off or, put it in, out of me, whatever? Think about these things. Have a look around and find ways of improving it. Plus, even with expensive things, there's always sales. You can wait, you can save, things like that. There is many ways of getting around it. So just think about it long term and you will see the benefits coming on very, very quickly, I think. I don't regret any of the good pair of shoes that I've bought or any of the clothes in which I invested a little bit more money, because I still have them now and they generally made me feel good in my skin without having to worry about fibromyalgia, temperature, pain, or anything like that. But it's something that we just tend to forget so often because we need to wear them, or we end up wearing them all the time. And it's just so easy to just glance over them and think, whatever, they don't have an impact. But they do. They do. And I insist, comfort comes before looks. At the end of the day, if people don't think that you look so and so, frankly, who cares? What's more important, that you're comfortable in your own skin or that they think so and so about you? It's just one of those things. But anyway, I hope that you consider this, and I hope that you do some revisions to your wardrobe and see what works for you and doesn't. And if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you next week.